Thank you, Brian. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's school board. It is January 11th. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Do you need the phone?
Oh,
I can get it.
Next, we have public participation. Do we have anybody that's on the online forum?
Is there anyone on who would like to speak?
I received no emails this afternoon.
Okay. Okay, we're not hearing anybody initially. I'm going to leave it open as we start some budget discussion, and if somebody has something in the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'll entertain it. We're going to start with budget, which is the first thing on our agenda. Thank you, Brian. Brian, so we're going to start with the encumbrances. I know there was some late-breaking stuff in the folder, which I didn't get a chance to review, so I don't know where you guys want to start, which document?
Well, since we last met on Thursday, Ruth Ellen and myself and administrators kind of went through this again, kind of line by line and then line by line again, and then a couple more times, and we worked our way to $1 million.
So which document do you want us to refer to?
Should be...
The workbook?
Board freeze workbook. Board freeze workbook. That's what-
So other members, if you could open up the board freeze workbook dated 1/11-21. So where would you like to start?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Joe.
do we have either Ruth Ellen or Ryan kind of highlight where those additions were found?
Yep.
Maybe some of the bigger chunks?
I can give it to you by, really by department or function code. For, regular education, $404,000. Special education, $70,000. Behavioral services, $92,000. Vocational programs, $10,400. Co-curriculars, $9,700. Athletics, almost $51,000. Summer school, $11,000. Let's see. Guidance, $13,000. About $1,000 from health services. $20,000 from speech services. $33,000 from instruction and curriculum. $5,700 from educational media, to the libraries. School board services, about $1,000. Executive administration, $34,500. Let's see, support services.
Now, Brian, these
School
are
administration.
the changes?
These are the cuts.
Well, this is what's frozen.
Frozen.
But this is not in addition to the prior one? This is,
This is
This is
total.
the whole,
Okay.
yes.
okay, because it was way more.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Joel.
it's fine that we're going over the numbers, but Ruth Ellen, I think what I'm looking for is,
What's the impact?
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you jumped from 400,000 here. What, something went bye-bye.
Part of that is positions that were not filled. We have some places where we have some subs that I have trimmed a bit because frankly it's been very tough to get subs. I have looked at, let's see here.
Supplies, furniture.
Supplies, we've had to cut into pretty much across the board. The bulk of general education is out of either unfilled positions or benefits that look like they are likely to be unexpended. So
So we are not gonna fill any vacant positions.
in general education in 1100, at this time, no.
Okay.
Special education, we have specifically left room. We have an unfilled case manager's position that is looking to potentially increase by about 9 students in the next couple of weeks. We have need for additional paras, part with those new students coming in, and we have some unfilled positions there. We have mostly in special education looked at some supplies, some places where health insurance may be over. We had budgeted for people whose circumstances have changed. We have left in what we have for out-of-district tuition, and we've got to be really careful with special education in particular because we're required to demonstrate maintenance of effort in order to be able to spend IDEA funds. We also do have the expendable trust fund, but that is specifically written as unanticipated costs that are not covered by the budget. And if we have it budgeted, it may be disallowed for us to take it from the trust fund. So we need to really be careful with special education in particular.
So let me stop you right there so I can ask a couple questions about what you just said.
Sure.
So regarding the staff positions for special ed, is that one position, 2 positions?
We have one teaching position.
That you've reserved the
Yes.
funds to hire?
Yes.
Now regarding the paras, how many positions are unfilled and how many do you expect you're going to need in additional, based upon additional needs?
It's a little fluid right now because
Say 5. And that is 5 new additional or 5 including the unfilled positions?
I'm hoping it's 5 including the unfilled positions.
How many
We'll have to
positions
look
are
and see.
unfilled?
We have 4 now. I believe it's 4. Is that correct, Diana?
Yes, 4 now, and then we have an additional student that's coming in who will need a one-on-one.
Okay.
So,
We have 4 unfilled positions that we're already budgeted for.
correct.
And was reserving the funds for an additional para
Correct.
based upon an expected need.
Right.
Okay.
For behavioral services, looking at cuts there that are going to be covered in another line because those 2 positions are contracted services. So those we're able to cut. We're looking at, again, insurance that needs have shifted. We have different personnel, which also that in turn changes the FICA and retirement there. Vocational services, we have budgeted for 20 students. We have 16 students attending. So this would mean, and typically we don't have students who are able to start at semester because it's a year-long program, and most of those are certificate programs. So looking at the 16 who are attending can still go, but the other 4 that were budgeted would be, the monies would be released. Co-curricular, we have The majority of our club activities are not meeting currently after school, so that's where those cuts would come from. We also trimmed back assemblies lines.
Which line?
Assemblies for
Okay,
the schools.
because we're not having them.
Well, we do have the option of doing some of these digitally, but looking at where our lesser impact would be. Under athletics, we're looking at, we've encumbered most of what we think we will need for spring sports, depending upon what spring sports will look like by the time we get there. If we have more full participation, those two amounts that have been frozen, we may need to relook at those a little bit more carefully.
Those amounts being how much in what areas?
Those amounts are Henry Wilson and high school together, it's about $9,000. Those are for salaries for additional, it's referees and,
And you're expecting
Salaries.
that savings based upon not having certain events?
potentially,
Physical.
yes, yep.
Now, go ahead, Joel.
May I just ask on the athletic line here, so as I'm looking at the cuts, it looks like you only have enough funding left for varsity programming.
Potentially, that may be where it is right now. And again, we may be able to shift some more later, but yes.
Because you cut your referee umpire line significantly too. So it doesn't look like there's money for a middle school or JV program, should there be enough kids, but, okay.
Okay.
Now, what,
Go ahead.
Ruth Ellen, the number you had given in sports was 51,000, right? Brian.
It's 50,000.
850.
Okay,
850.
so it's 51,000, and you said a bunch of that was already encumbered. So is it actually 51,000 reduction, or is 51,000 because of the encumbrances and some of the shortfalls in spending because of COVID?
The reduction should be out here on the left, but as I look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10, 12, 24. Yeah, I don't know that that's a full 50. We'll have to go back and look at that.
For the 1420 series?
Yes.
Yeah, that's 50.
Is it 50?
It's 2 pages.
Okay. I know, I'm looking at the other piece, but, okay. Okay,
If you add them all up.
yep. Summer school, for the most part, didn't happen. We encumbered from last year, thinking we were going to need more extensive summer school. We weren't able to do as much as we had anticipated, and as summer school generally runs in July, anything that we have here would get cut off in June. So that was left as, or taken as a freeze, with the exception of some funding that was left if we need to transfer that to additional tutoring for students, both primarily in regular education at this point. There is also a tutoring line for special education.
How much is that money that you've reserved for the tutoring?
Let's see, that ends up being,
It's over
About-
about 5,000.
yeah, 5,000 total.
That's a line you want to keep an eye on, depending on what the federal money allows us to do. My read on the federal money is that tutoring will be allowed expense, but we haven't heard from DOE as of yet.
Okay. Let's see, next down would be
Guidance.
guidance. We looked at primarily supplies and the fact that we have a change in personnel there. So that cut is about $13,000.
And that change was due to a resignation?
Resignation and hiring a less experienced
Okay,
counselor.
just trying to remember.
Yep, that's okay. It all begins to get a little blurry. Guidance services, primarily from insurance buybacks, insurance that, again, circumstances have changed. Speech services, looking at, again, changes in benefits. That's about $20,000. Physical and occupational therapy, looking at $33,000. We have moved some of this,
instruction
I'm
and
sorry, that's
curriculum.
instruction and curriculum. I looked at, physical and occupational therapy is no cut. Instruction curriculum, we have trimmed several of the lines. They're marked as contractual. Traditionally, we don't always spend the entire piece, but because it's contractual, we need to have it there. We're going to need to watch those lines and see if that needs to shift depending upon how it's being used. That's both for course reimbursement and for workshops for staff. I'm fairly confident the travel, although it's contractual, an awful lot is now online and people are not submitting for mileage reimbursement. I am thinking that particularly the course reimbursement, we're going to have to watch. I have several classes now that are starting to come through the pipeline for spring semester. Let's see here. Media specialist.
Mostly books.
Primarily books, materials, supplies. We have trimmed that by $5,700. School board, it's been trimmed by about $1,000. That is, and we moved some things over, but then there's some deficits in that too because we have a second election this year for payment of school officials that was not budgeted because we had the teacher's contract in the fall. So we have a second set of election payment that needs to happen. Executive administration, trimming out buybacks,
Retirement and FICA.
the retirement and FICA as we've had personnel changes, and telephone services because of our change in phone service this year. We're anticipating that we're going to have fairly significant savings there. So that's about $34,000 for that line. For school services administration, looking primarily the larger cuts are under health insurance because we have, again, changes where people are taking the benefits and we have one fewer administrator in the schools this year.
I've got a question on one line, it'd be 823, the note. It says new equipment technology, and the note says...
Can you, 823, so you're,
Line 823?
Yeah,
You're skipping ahead?
823. Yeah, sorry.
okay. I haven't gotten there yet, all right.
The note says bear offset.
Yep. Under E-rate, the BEAR program is a reimbursement for federal for technology projects that are done under the E-rate program through the E-rate bidding process. And so we pay for those and get a partial reimbursement on that. We will have reimbursement coming back that will cover a portion of that line. It won't cover all of it. Right now, I think it's roughly 13.
Yeah, 13,000.
Because that's a scheduled project that goes through bidding process through E-rate.
But here it shows in red 27.
We've expended that much. We're anticipating monies back that will be an offset, but I don't have the full amount of the offset yet.
But, so that offset amount isn't entered?
It's not entered,
Okay.
correct.
'Cause
So
I see- yeah.
that will go up a little bit. It just hasn't done it yet. I can't tell you exactly how much that's going to be, but we have more coming on it. So the deficit will go down. We'll have more money.
But while you're on E-rate, we get money back from two functions on E-rate. One is projects and one is on the services we pay for.
This is project specific.
So there'll be another one at some point in time on reimbursement for what we've invested in internet, correct?
The internet comes in, I believe, as a reduction on the cost. We don't get a check back the same way on
You
that.
don't get a discount, well, we didn't. I
Okay.
don't know whether we do now under the new contract.
Okay.
Is it a rebate that's applied to the next year?
It depends upon when it comes in, which is one of those other fun things. Did you want me to go back to where I was?
Oh,
or
yeah,
did you have
sorry,
another question?
sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to, looking at, next one down here is going to be building services. Shaving pieces off in supplies. We've had a shift again in insurance. There are several pieces through here too that are also marked as going or being reimbursed by the CARES Act. So there's about $110,000 right now that's earmarked to be reimbursed through that. We're looking at equipment lines being cut for new or replacement equipment. And the larger pieces for this, it's an interesting offset, and it doesn't show quite the same way on this, because if you look at amounts left over in the 2620 lines for facilities, it shows that under the roof repairs, we have 92,000 remaining for Henry Wilson and 309,350 remaining for the high school. But those monies are not remaining monies in the general fund. They are actually sitting in the trust fund that we are not, or the capital reserve fund that we are not tapping. So those need to be subtracted, and they are at the end, from our remaining monies, because we needed to include the full amount because we were authorized to expend up to that amount. We had to include it, but it's not money that's sitting in our lines. So it looks like $400,000 that should be left over and is not. So I just wanted, if somebody's doing the quick math, it's in the budget, but it's not sitting where we can expend it for
Right.
anything but the roofs.
Right, it's in a trust
Yep.
account for those
Correct.
repairs.
Yep.
Building repairs, I don't know, some are specific for roof repairs and some are, are they all?
We can, one of the accounts we can tap with a public hearing and be able to do, but these have been specifically
Right.
allowed for roofs. So the
Right.
only thing we can spend these monies on, at least this year, is a roof.
Right, but in those trust funds, some are more specific than others?
Correct.
Yeah.
But even if a trust fund that is fairly generic, which these are buildings and grounds,
Okay, yeah.
but because the larger one, which we are not agents to expend, went to the session as specifically for
Right.
roofs, that's all we can spend it for.
No, that's fine.
Yep. Also in there, it shows the security upgrades as negatives. We will have partial funding coming in for those. Also, it shows the boiler control systems that were approved through the public hearing the other night. Shows our funding for Mr. Greenhall. And that's the majority for that one.
Now, on the boiler systems for Henry Wilson, you show $22,773 coming from capital reserve funds. But then you show a reduction of 1,000.
There was already 3,000 and some odd left in the line.
Okay.
And so the 25 that's
Was approved.
encumbered, that was approved, there was a little bit in there to offset, and then the rest will be coming from, or the full amount will come from capital reserve, but the line shows a little bit because there was a little bit in there.
Right.
So once we're reimbursed, we'll have about $3,000 sitting in that line.
And we sat down with Larry. Actually, Larry was really thorough on going through this.
Yes.
So he was one that actually offered up that money.
For technology, we're looking at, nope, sorry, we're in transportation. So again, looking at some shifts in where some of our in-service training has been and some of our additional runs that we haven't been being able to do. Our homeless transportation is down significantly this year because we have the option of having students remote if they choose to do so. We certainly will transport if they wish. The insurance for the buses is included in Primex, so this was didn't need to be there. We've cut back slightly on our fuel, looking at our consumption thus far. If we have everyone in, our bus runs will obviously increase somewhat, but we're pretty confident that at least those amounts can go. Transportation, special education, again, looking at the needs when we went through this, were before we had a family coming in that may need more significant transportation needs. So that line may shift depending upon what we find out in the next week. Most of the rest of these are tweaks to salary lines as we have had different categories of bus runs, just haven't been running with the same frequency. Rec trips, are assuming aren't going to be happening at this point. Repairs, we really didn't feel like we could cut. We are over in that line. Our buses have not liked sitting. We are working on making sure that they get a pretty good rotation in this summer and spring without having the regular runs. The buses are designed to be out and running daily, and they don't sit well.
So, since we've started having problems, what have we done for that? Have we made sure that we've started them every day?
Start and run.
Start and run?
Start and run. Well, we're not doing a full
Run
bus
as
run.
what? Physically on the road or run?
Physically on the road. At least do a couple laps around downtown, because just starting it
Right.
isn't enough to make it happy.
Okay.
It needs the exercise. Information services, looking at being able to trim some of our support line and looking at a fairly significant change to our software licensing. And that's primarily because we changed some of the software licensing that we had budgeted for. And because it is not the same software, we have gone in a different direction, largely because of our remote needs. The new pieces were able to be captured from some of the CARES money. And then we have pieces that are moving to the CARES Act, so that will more than offset what shows as a deficit right now in technology. We have, for 2,900 services, the workers' comp line has been cut by about $14,500. That is a reduction in our cost for this year. And the rest of it remains more or less as is.
Good. I guess one thought is that, we're going to need to, I think as a board, stay on top of this with administration to make sure if something comes up that we can address it as soon as possible. Because you may find a situation that doesn't, where this proposal has some unexpected problems.
Right. I mean, this leaves us with the funds that we're going to be reimbursed in the CARES Act at roughly $900,000 for the rest of the year, beyond what is currently encumbered. We know that we have pieces that we're going to have to expend, and frankly, looking at what's left is more or less already spent in our heads. I understand the reasoning behind the request to find the lines. It won't be without impact. And certainly my concern, not only with cutting this year, but I know Mr. Brown had made a comment at our last meeting about being able to then really move next year where we need to be, which is certainly a goal. My concern is that because we have things we've cut this year, we won't have those next year for a budget that was built based on assuming that we were able to accomplish those pieces.
Well, I mean, that's a concern. I think it's our job as this board to communicate better with the budget committee next year and to say, okay, this is, this is different than last year, and here's the reasons why, in a case-by-case basis. All of that may not be able to sell every instance, but I think we've got a reasonable chance of doing that. Tim, you have
So I just want to comment that the other way I'm looking at this is I sign manifests often from the board. I'm looking at a remaining non-encumbered fund balance of $906,498, which between January and June allows us for an average of $151,083 per month on our expenses. Some months we've hit that, and some months we've hit less. So while it's not pleasant, I think it's manageable. And I think as we want to go forward, because basically now what we're doing is converting this budget into a $14 million budget, where we were last year with a little bit of an increase. What we've proposed next year is a higher step. So when I say we can get off running, we can look at that budget and move forward. I don't see how that's a negative impact, and I think the only reality with the budget committee, in a budget that now, through no fault of the administration, because of our revenue situation, projects a $3 per thousand increase. So we either take the hit now or take the hit later. And I just don't want to see, us hire, and I'll use an example, 3 teachers this year, and the money's not there next year that we're laying them off. I just think, I think our hands are tied, and I don't think we have a better choice. And if we do, I'm all ears.
And I certainly don't want to lay anyone off either.
No, and some of these positions we've been struggling to fill. I mean, I don't know,
We do have candidates for the special ed position.
but what about the 5 paras?
That's been very difficult.
So I guess, maybe we need to try to reach out again on social media to put another that we're still looking for paras, in all the ways that we did before to get maybe a little bit more action, because that's a pretty big lift. 5 para positions.
Yes, it is.
You have one special ed position, which is still significant, but 5 paras is a lot.
Yes, it is.
And we're budgeted for that, and it'd be nice to be able to fill those, but if we look at our history, if we follow this current trend, unless we make some changes, we're not going to be able to fill those positions. If history continues, unless we can try something different. I mean, granted, there's a lot of people competing for the same resources.
The good news is we have a para contract.
I mean, a contract may help, and that was the whole reasoning of the negotiation committee behind the contract. A new contract, which doesn't kick in until next year, may help fill some of those voids, because at least we're competitive, if the taxpayers approve it.
But at what point will that content be available to those employees that may pass that on to other potential employees?
Well, it's been ratified, and it's going to...
Both sides?
Yes, and
Okay.
going to Budget Committee for this week, because they need to look at it
So
for
at
the
this
budget
point, that
hearing. It's
information is
public.
public?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And so if someone is looking for a copy of that, contact the office.
Well, I think it's important too, if somebody is in the business and not a new para, and they're looking for long-term placement, when we do our social media postings, while we're posting what we're hiring now, I think it would be good to add where we're going in the future, so that they know what their growth is.
Potentially. I need to be
potentially
careful
be.
that I'm not advertising something that hasn't been ratified by the voters yet, but certainly we have
Okay, all
something
right.
written that's...
No, you're right. Yep,
Yeah.
you're right. No, you're right.
But I think that, a concern that has been raised is that if we demonstrate essentially cuts now, although they're freezes, what's to say that we're not going to be asked to continually do that? And I understand that part of it is in the presentation, and that matters. But there is a concern that there is a pattern being set up that is going to be very, very difficult to sustain if we are looking to make any type of forward motion as a district.
Right. People could take that opinion, but I think the history in the last 6 months is that when this current board, with some older membership and us new membership, at any time when there has been issue about finding funds to accomplish something, we've done it. We haven't said, you can't do it, you can't hire them. Whether it's been a building need or some other need, I think we've made sure that the money was available for those things that need to happen. And when we get to next budget cycle, I think if this board continues doing that, and the Budget Committee has confidence in our diligence to do that we're going to be fine. And I hopefully we get to this budget cycle with this Budget Committee, that's going to give us a very good indication.
I think,
I mean, we need to be, we've been forward with all the information. We've been trying as timely as possible. We've given direction to them of what we're trying to do. And hopefully it builds confidence in them that they're willing to go out on a limb a little bit further in the future with us. Tim?
I read I can't think of his name, the Plastow State Rep. He's on the budget for the state. His analysis of the state's revenue problems, and they're much less than what they were projecting from COVID. The reason I'm bringing that up is in my conversations with our state rep, Mr. Petrie, and again, he doesn't have the crystal ball in front of him, but he seems positive that, or pretty likely that we're going to get the $800,000 again this year. Budgeting-wise, we have to move forward as if we're not. But if we do that in a biannual budget, next year, as we're going through our budget and moving forward, knowing that that money is there or not, it just gives us the tools to plan. And, I think this budget, this board has been pretty clear that we have to look at revenue sources and how we generate revenue, that we can't count on the state. It's not... I'm not afraid to go to the Budget Committee for a budget increase or a tax increase where, from the direction of what I heard last night, we're going to see a return on our investment. Going in now and getting basically walloped with our loss of revenue numbers that we didn't see coming this year, especially when we're doing the budget, is just a bad year to go in with the higher end and let them cut next year. I think I get the concern. I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. Can I tell you when it's coming? No. But I don't think it's the intent of this board to get down to where we are now and sustain that in years to come. At least it's not my intent.
I do want to ask, though, because you said on the revenues, didn't see it coming. I've been projecting pretty much since October that this is where our revenues were. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that it wasn't because I wasn't giving.
No, and that's not directed to you. That's more directed at this, I thought by the end of December from the state that we'd have more positive direction of where we're going. And the first time that I've really seen the light at the end of the tunnel, in fact, the town adjusted their revenue because of it, was the analysis that came out of the House. Mm-hmm. And the state rep that's on the fiscal committee that does that, out of Plastow, it wasn't as bad. In fact, the lines that they thought they were going to lose revenue in, they have positive growth that they never saw coming.
Now, did he give any indication far as the projection, say, was 40% down, but it's only 15% down? Did he give any numbers to kind of quantify that?
There were numbers.
Besides it's just better?
No, there was numbers within the article where,
Well, Charlie.
and I'll use an analysis because I don't remember what the exact analysis was, but if it was a $6 million loss, which I know it was higher than that, they came in at like a $1 million loss. So there was a substantial deviation of where they thought they were going to lose revenue that they actually didn't. And for instance, state liquor sales are up. So we made a profit in
Hooray
state
for
liquor
COVID.
sales. Highway toll money is down, but it's offset by some of these increases. So the bleak picture that they were expecting, that the sky was falling, they're saying, hey, guess what? The sun might come out, it's not falling. But again, until they do the budget, we're not going to know where that is. So I'm nervous going forward, but I think in balancing that, do we react now or do we hold our breath and react later? I don't think we're going to be able to hold our breath and react later without a plan. And they may not accept this. And if they don't accept this and they say, nope, we want to cut your next year's budget, that's fine. We go back to the drawing,
The other piece is that even if we get that $800,000 next year tacked onto the adequacy, that's not a bump up in what we're allowed to spend. It doesn't give us $800,000 in revenue that enhances programs. It goes back to the taxpayers. And that's not to say that that's all bad, but people look at it in terms of, oh, you can get $800,000 more worth of stuff. No, we can't, because those monies are an offset. So it doesn't increase the bottom line of our budget. Our budget remains whatever gets voted in March, period. Even if we get more adequacy.
I agree
The
with
budget next year is substantially higher.
not.
Understood, but whatever budget goes through in March, even if we were to get an additional $800,000 from the state, it doesn't get added to that budget. It goes back as revenues to the town to offset that budget. It doesn't become more that we can spend.
I realize that.
But what it does is take a $3 tax impact and brings it down to something that the taxpayer is willing to swallow and fund our budget. And I think, I haven't heard any complaints about the budget that was put forward for next year. I think it's a reasonable budget. I think it allows us to do as a board and a district what we want to do. And this whole process, in my mind, is trying to maintain and survive what we want to do next year. But again, if there's an alternate way, or a better way of looking at it, I'm all ears. But I know we're not going to get a $3 per thousand tax increase from the Budget Committee.
Okay, any of the members that are logged in remotely have any discussion or questions? Joel, Tim, or Stan? Or Josh or Stan? Tim's here.
I'm all set, thank you.
No, all good, thank you.
All set.
Okay.
Question
Go
for you,
ahead.
though. All the requisition orders come through me, so I'm the one that usually either rejects them
Through both of
or,
us, yeah.
before it gets to her, it gets to me, and I usually clear them out before then.
Yeah,
we do have to make, right now, we're making some decisions based upon this where we truly are frozen. For example, I have one today where, and I'm just asking for guidance on where you want me to go with this. We have a middle school class that needs 10 books because they're reading a novel and they need 10 more novels to fulfill the rest of the class. I had to say no because our budget is frozen.
Until we knew where we were tonight.
Right, until we knew where we were tonight. So I guess I'm asking you from, now that we're reached this goal, I'm not saying open the floodgates, but I'm like, how much leeway do we have?
And there was a
do that.
comment last meeting that you would be reviewing all of the requisitions. And I think
Right.
that was just, if we can't get here, we'll do it for you.
Well, no,
However,
it's
we
like.
want to make sure that we're not overstepping.
Not so much doing it for you, but if we're not at our goal, we may need to go through each item to make sure, is this absolutely necessary or not? And if we didn't reach the goal, then at least we've taken every look, and can ensure people, you know what I'm saying?
So this
So
is-
in this case,
so
that
this is
exact
the que-
case, based upon this plan, are the resources in your plan to accomplish that?
We could cover that. I mean, basically, we're going to need to look at anything we spend now, we're subtracting from 900,000, going down. And knowing that we can, I guess, looking to see, are you still allowing us management right to do that, or are you saying that that's coming to the board? Because it sounded like there was a comment there that you guys wanted to see those details. And I'm just looking to see what it is we're doing moving forward.
Tim?
What I'd like to see, and I called Brian real quickly trying to get the numbers here, and I just, not having a lot of time, said, did you reach the number? And the answer was yes. The board passed a motion directing administrative staff to freeze $1 million.
Which we did.
You folks have made those freezes. I'm okay on your $151,083 per month. And I'm even okay with, if there's something frozen that you find, I messed up, I gotta spend $4,200. You're gonna have to find that $4,200 within the $151,083. Because when we end this year, we need to end the year with $1 million in the bank. How you get there is what we pay you guys to do. That's beyond us.
I guess that's
But
that's
what I would like,
I agree with that.
What I would like is status updates as to, this is the 900,000 we have left, this is what we've expended at it, this is where we are, we still have $1 million frozen, and I'm fine. And if you got to rob from Peter to pay Paul within the $1 million freeze, and you can do it without overexpending that money, have a blast.
Yeah, I'll keep it. I was planning on keeping a separate spreadsheet outside of the budget that just
I mean, you may find that in this, say this one case, that becomes a negative in that one area. You need to make sure that there's going to be a positive in another area to offset it.
Well, and that's what we do anyway. And
That's where-
that's
this
partly
one
why
shows,
we were
yeah.
looking, when we said,
No,
you've got some notes in there that say this is covered here, because we know that there are,
I mean, this is a plan that, we've given direction, and you've got, this is how we're going to handle it. As far as the micro adjustments, I'm okay as a board member for you guys to make those adjustments. If you get a big number, that's an issue, and you need to bring it to us, then bring it to us.
okay?
Any other board members, discussion on that for guidance for Ruth Ellen and Brian?
No?
No, I'm good with that.
So are you still looking at monthly financials then, or are you looking at something more frequent? Just knowing that
Month's a long time.
a month is a long time, but we also,
Yeah.
in stopping to then prepare additional
Right.
reports, that also takes time. Heads up if it looks nasty.
Well, I think based upon, we have some scheduled meetings, so our regularly scheduled meetings, I would say, we would want
So
an
every 2
update.
weeks you want to report.
Right, because that gets it at least more frequent, and if it's a regular meeting, I mean, if there's something that's got to, if we have an additional meeting and something's got to come up, and we should be brought up, but
Okay.
a month is,
Also, I guess what I want to make sure that you look at too is, as you look at the manifest, there is a lag between
yeah.
requisition, PO, manifest. So what we're going to be doing is based on the requisitions. What you will see with the manifest is
Right.
It's a
And
further
we're
down the
We're
line.
typically on a 30-day pay?
for the most part, yes, but we don't always get the invoices within 30 days.
30 days of getting the product.
Right. We get it and pay it within 30 days, but we might not get it until 6 months down the line. I'm still waiting on some things that happened in September.
Charlie, can I?
Go ahead.
Brian said he was going to generate some type of spreadsheet for his internal tracking purposes. I don't know whether I need a formal report and I'm just putting this out for consensus. I don't need a formal report every 2 weeks, but if we can have an agenda item with the budgetary update with a number, and Brian can just say, hey, I reviewed the spreadsheet today, we're on track. That's all I need to
I mean,
know.
the other thing is, if you have a working document, I don't have any problem with starting where you submitting us that working document, and we will adjust and learn what we have to learn to decipher it. So that you're not doing
And pretty much,
additional work.
you're looking at our working document.
Yeah.
So you're not asking for additional
Yeah.
work. We're just looking for an update of where our current status is. So whatever you're using for in-process form spreadsheet, just give us that.
Okay, you're looking at it.
I can do it.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'm happy with that.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, we got two things on the old business. One is grade analysis, and the other was the FICRA guidance. And on the grade analysis, I mean, some of this we just got this afternoon.
You did.
Is this something we want to table?
That's fine. I can give you just kind of the quick overview. I'd given you portions of this verbally the other night, looking at the...
Go ahead. Yeah,
Go ahead. Okay. So the other pieces added some additional statistics for the first quarter, which was the concern where our grades were. This is primarily at the high school first. First quarter, 75 students out of 242 had failed one or more classes. That's 31% of students. 41% of those students were remote. 67% of students who failed a class also have multiple absences, and that's more than 5 days, which means that they've hit beyond the, Danger Will Robinson line. And
Now, on the 5-day threshold, is that, what does that entail far as school policy, far as is there some action
at that
takes
point, we are
place?
now doing corrective action for truancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is a point of when things change?
It's 10
I thought
half-day
so, but-
absences, which is 5 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And then 56% of students who both failed a class and have multiple absences are remote. But if you look at the number, it's 28 out of 31 remote students. Of those who failed, there were 31 remote students who failed. 28 of those are having attendance issues. And so that, when we had talked about our correlation was not necessarily the remote piece, it's the attendance piece. A number of our students who've chosen to go remote, we're now making home visits, trying to get, we've been doing this for the last couple of months, trying to make sure that we can get in contact with families and perhaps urge that there may be a better fit for that student. Some have specific reasons for remaining remote. Others, we're still in the process of doing the wellness checks. Mr. Roberts and our SRO have been visiting homes. His car is probably well-known now in town. But that's kind of the overview. The other piece that I had given you, we talked about in the last meeting, and I didn't have them to show you, is the STAR data from Valley View. And I want you to go ahead and be able to take a look at that so we can table a larger discussion. But give you an idea of what it is that you're looking at, it's in there by grade level. The first one with the bar graph is the remote class for either first, second, or third grade at Valley View. Kindergartners don't take the same star reports. And then the horizontal bar graph is the full class. So you can look at green means that they are fully at grade level. So if you look at our remote students versus our in-person students, just as a quick color overview, and then we can talk more about where those are and what you're looking at next time, but just to kind of give you some orientation as to what you're looking at.
All right, quick questions?
Just got
Ken?
a quick comment. I appreciate the data. One of the things that I'd like to do when Diana gets back is be a workshop or at a meeting or whatever to actually identify some of our problems in depth, see if we're on the right track in the direction we're going. Is there other things that we can do? Is there help that the board can offer? And I'll have some suggestions there. But I mean, the data is helpful. The thing that really bothers me is, and not whether it's remote or in person or whatever, is that the number of failures.
Absolutely.
And that's what we have to address and get better at.
And we are addressing that on multiple levels.
Yep.
And it's a process.
Yep. Okay.
So I'm going to make a motion to continue the FICRA guidance to the next meeting. Ruth Ellen's got a memo in here that I haven't had a chance to go through. I'm sure I'll have some questions before then. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Like I said, for the other members, is to...
Charlie, you bugged out right at the last of that
Yeah.
motion. I didn't hear it.
So we're going to motion to continue the FICRA guidance, which is a memo from Ruth Ellen that just got in our
Yeah.
folder today, to continue into the next meeting.
Okay.
So I guess my only question would be, with any staff who kind of are potentially in the gap here, just making sure that while FICRA has ended, and it's ended, and that's fine, just looking to make sure that that's where we're going until such time that you get a chance to finish reading the memo. And that may be what we continue.
Meaning, because right now, some things were required to be paid, and now they're not.
Correct. And so, probably the two things that are affecting the larger number of staff members, and I'll just put this out so that you can kind of have this to think about it as you go into the next meeting. Staff members who have students who are in other districts who have gone remote no longer have coverage under FICRA if they need to stay with those staff members, with those students, with their own children. And students or staff members who are not able to remote in to perform their duties, such as bus drivers or custodians, are left without they still have their accrued sick time. But there are some that may be closer to lines on the accrued sick time, and I want to make sure that I don't have somebody coming in who's symptomatic because they're close on time. So considerations certainly can table until next time.
I've got some discussions in non-public under safety and security that'll address some of those concerns that I think may move the board in a better direction to making our decision at the next meeting. I don't want to table it tonight, but
Yeah,
I'm not comfortable.
I'm not comfortable leading anyone in any direction because I'm not sure what I think is fair and reasonable at this point. And I got to go through this. I don't want to just start discussing it and then have people get worked up unnecessarily if we come back to, if we all of a sudden go way over here, and then we come back to here. So I want to make sure that I understand all the possible scenarios of what's currently happening, maybe on a case-by-case basis with no names, to make sure that I understand fully who and what positions, what's going to be the impact of the decision.
I have my documentation.
Any other discussion on the motion, which is to continue to the next meeting? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. So we have public participation, but before that,
I was going to say,
I'm going to go new business, which I should have had on the agenda.
I have another old business.
Okay, go ahead with that.
Okay. In your warrant, in the folder is an updated warrant. There are, I made the change on Article 12 that you had requested. There is also language in there now for Article 2, which is boilerplate, and I can't change it even if you want to, but wanted to make sure that you saw that.
Yep.
There wasn't a vote to accept it as such, but it's the only language that you get if you don't want to accept it.
All right, so in Article 2, it's to disclose of audit reports, shall the school board district accept and place on file the reports of the auditors, agents, committees, and officers chosen to conduct the prudent affairs of the district.
I'll make a motion to amend our vote to include Article 2.
I'll second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Question?
Aye.
On Article 12, if you're opening up the whole one, because I know you already voted on this, my question is, this calls this an appropriation, when actually it's not an appropriation on Article 12. There's no funds.
That's true, it
Involved in
should be
that.
Article.
Well, we haven't got to that one.
Well, actually, no, he opened
you
up to
opened up
say
the
the
whole
whole, you're
vote.
going to include.
That's why
We're going to include Article 2. We can make a second motion on Article 12 if that moves the process. Or I can withdraw my motion and we can do both at the
Well,
same
motion
time.
passed. We've amended that. We can amend it again
Yeah,
with a
okay.
change to Article 12.
right.
So we've amended it, and
Yeah.
that was, and now we maybe should have some discussion on Article 12 before we consider amending it again.
Okay.
So the article, I'll read it, so everyone at home knows what it is. Article 12 is a Little Red Schoolhouse refurbishment, to see if the Farmington School District will vote to direct the Farmington School Board to pursue the rehabilitation of the street school, AKA Little Red Schoolhouse, by obtaining formal quotes and available grant funding for said purpose not to exceed $250,000. Any expenditures for this refurbishment will be brought back to the voters for final approval as required by law. The school board recommends this appropriation. The budget committee recommends this appropriration.
And actually, it
you're-
probably should be article rather than appropriation, because you're not appropriating anything.
Right, because there's no funds being transferred.
So it should be in both the places where it says appropriation, should be
It should be
article.
article,
Correct.
yes.
Correct.
Any discussion? That's a recommendation by staff. Not hearing any discussion, I'll make, go ahead.
Can I just make a comment? So we're going to look into rehabbing the Little Red Schoolhouse, and I understand how we got into the $250,000 number. Do we really want to put a number in there if we're asking them, do we obtain formal quotes and grants? For instance, if the cost to rehabilitate is $500,000 and we get $500,000 in grants, are we going to do the project? If that's the will of the taxpayer?
Well, we had planned to have the quotes in by then, based upon
Yep.
some delays in getting the subcontractor moving, just unexpected, that we may have those quotes to present at deliberative session,
Okay.
that number,
But I'm going, and so the
or
number,
alert the budget committee as soon as we get them.
yeah, the number can be changed at deliberative, the intent cannot.
Right.
So I think what we're missing here is the statement that this warrant article is intended to be advisory to the board
Well, I guess
versus an appropriation.
it is true that it's not, but I guess, are you taking it as if they direct you to do so, you're going to do it, or they direct you to do so and you go, nah? Because advisory means you don't have to.
It's non-binding, so.
Well, even
Even if they say yes, we don't have to do it.
even if you, yeah,
Right.
even if you take the words out and change this article,
Right.
the board, a future board could say, we don't feel like it. I'm okay with adding advisory. I think we are asking for the will and intent of the taxpayer, and that's the whole intent of this article, because it may be a significant, I believe it's going to be a significant investment, and we need to inform the public as best we can with what that entails dollar-wise. And when we do that, they can consciously make the decision they feel is best for them and
Do you want advisory only added at the end in parentheses?
I think,
I could go either way. If that, Tim wants to make that motion with the other change of the
I mean, I'll
appropriation.
go with a consensus of what the board thinks. It's, again, I can go either way, but I think at the deliberative session, just the way Charlie explained it, we explained it to the taxpayer so that there's no misunderstanding of what we're
Right.
trying to do.
On this article, because this is the way I think that it should be done, I will be the one getting up and I will present and I will answer any question to make sure everybody there is clear on what we're asking. Because we're just looking for the consent, not the consent, but the will of the voters, what they want us to see us to do with this property that is, we've registered as historic property. But, to put that back in usefulness, it's a significant investment. And
is.
if they don't want to invest the money, then this board, after that vote, would have to make a decision. What, if they don't want to spend the money, what are we to do with it? And the best thing to do with it is to find somebody who's going to invest in it. Because if the taxpayer doesn't want to do it, we need to find somebody that can and will. Or else it's going to be in the cellar.
Termite fodder.
I guess, and consensus, discussion on changing the article. I think it should be, recommend this article instead of appropriation, and what's the board's feeling whether or not they want to add, this is advisory. Joel, I'll start with you.
Well, I don't mind having advisory in there. I'm gonna vote, I voted no on this article anyway, so, but I don't mind having advisory in there. Charlie, let me just throw this out. As you just stated, if the community says, nah, we really want to put that money into that building, and then you said it's the board's responsibility to kind of look at what interest there is in the building and what we could do with it, why not do that first?
Well, because, I'll give you just off the top of my head, right now it's the school district property. So right now it's our property to take care of, and it was an old school, so it was used for educational purposes. And I guess that would be the reason that comes to mind. If we were to say, let's just willy-nilly give it away to somebody who wants to do something else, would that really be us doing our job as far as it being a historical school? I don't know.
Is it considered Stan, is it considered a historical school or just a historical site? Is there a difference, or?
I think the whole thing is, it's in the Registry of Historic Places. So the building itself and the location, it hasn't been moved, but if it was moved, it could be still the building that's historic. So it really goes with the building.
I see.
Because if it's if its future use is educational or for the support of things that are done for the school and the students and staff, then I think that would be something that that we would determine after the taxpayer determines whether or not they're in favor of the funding or getting it funded. And I don't, like I said at the last meeting, I would be looking for proposals, options from others to consider for me to make a decision on what that would be. I don't have in my head that I think this is what it should be used for. I've been in the building, and I think that some of those uses, it's not limited, but it doesn't have unlimited options. You can't hold basketball in it. You can't, there's certain things
Probably not going to be a hockey rink.
Yeah, so there's certain things you can and can't do just because of what the structure is, so, and its location and its parking. I mean, the site is somewhat compromised based upon the access is allowed to the other residential dwellings, which are adjacent and been using that access around that building, and that's something that needs to be considered on all future uses. There's been some issues that I think have kind of resolved themselves in the past few years when I wasn't on the board. But it can't be all of a sudden, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to just consume all the space. Really can't do that because there's been a history of allowing access where people have developed rights over time. And those are going to basically stand. So, I mean, this is a significant project. Not only in rehabilitation, but the planning and implementation, that if it's rehabilitated and how it's going to be improved and done with, ideally, no negative impact to the surrounding residential uses. And that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of thought.
I just wonder if with what Tim pointed out, this, as he said in the last few weeks, is a tough year, I think, to sell something like that. In which case it would get voted down and end up in our lap to take a stronger look at anyway, I guess, but.
While you're looking at the articles,
Yeah.
the other piece I just wanted to mention, and it's not just to this one,
11?
DRA requires us to have, well, and that's kind of an offsetting appropriation. DRA requires us to have the recommendation on any article that is monetary. We are not required to have it on ones where there is no, where there's no impact to taxation. However, in the past, School Board and Budget Committee have voted on all of them. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I do know that they don't all have to be there, but in the past, we've done it anyway. So that's why it's there.
Yeah, and you're mostly referring to Article 12 where it was not unanimous, it was 3-1?
No, the fact that, for instance, anything that, Little Red Schoolhouse, safety, where it's coming from fund balance, there's not an immediate raise and appropriate, although it's worded as raise and appropriate, it's not coming from taxation. It's those pieces coming directly from taxation that require a School Board and Budget Committee to recommend or not recommend. But historically, we've done on all anyway, so.
I think it should be because the person the voter going to the ballot box should know whether it's unanimous, whether it's split vote, because that may say, just like in Article 12 we're discussing, geez, somebody could say, wow, geez, it wasn't unanimous. Maybe maybe they were apprehensive and they said, well, 100% of the board doesn't think, then I'm gonna not vote for it. Or they say, well, it's still a majority, I'm gonna vote for it, but they should know.
My other question is, now that you have all 5 board members present, do you want to vote so that you have full representation on the votes? That's entirely your prerogative.
Good question. That's a good question.
You got till tomorrow to do it.
We got till tomorrow to do it. So we have the next 10 minutes to decide. Well, I'm going to start off by, I'm going to make a motion to amend Article 12 to change the word appropriation to article and add in the language that this is advisory only. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
So the motion is and seconded. Any discussion?
If you're gonna make it advisory, it's not even worth putting on the warrant.
So you're,
It's meaningless if it's advisory.
okay. So you're not in favor of having an advisory?
That's correct. If we want to ask the townspeople what they want to do with the building, we should do what they say. If we don't care and it's only advisory, then why bother asking? Just do what we want to do.
Because legally, regardless of what they say, Stan, it's still only advisory under the statute. We don't even have to go to the taxpayers. We can say rehabilitate it or tear it down unless there's an appropriation. But I think my purpose of saying it's advisory only is because there's a $250,000 number in there, and I don't want somebody to look at that $250,000 number and say, no, I'm not having my taxes go up, I'm not voting for that, when that's not the intent of kind of what we're asking the taxpayer.
But we're not going to do it this year. We don't even put a price on it. Just ask the question, do you want to renovate it or not? We're not going to do it this year, we'll do it in the future, or we'll do it when we can afford it. But do you want to renovate it or not?
Right.
Because that's the real question. The real question isn't should we spend $250,000 now or next year. The real question is, do you want us to keep the building and renovate it?
Yep, I
So we
agree
should
with
just
you.
ask that question and never mind the price.
Well, I think for me, the taxpayer needs to know what's the rough scope of this. Is it $1 or is it $1 million? And we know it's somewhere in between. You know,
But
to
we're not
answer,
planning on paying for it. You're planning on getting grants. So it's not. It may not cost anything.
that's true. But our chance of getting the whole amount in grant, I think it's possible, but I don't know how likely it is. And I agree, I plan to do what the voter says. So if the voter says they want to rehab it, whether it says advisory or not, I take what their wishes seriously. So I can go either way, to be honest. I don't need advisory. I can take it off. I guess I'll ask Josh, what's your thoughts? Advisory, put it on there or not?
No, I put it on there.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm a no.
Stan?
I'm going to be a no.
Okay, so that's 3-2. And now that brings up the next question.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
that passes, so that one will now reflect 3-2.
Got it.
So on the other ones, Ruth
That was
Ellen...
just on amending it. That wasn't on.
Oh, okay.
on
Okay, so the motion, that's fine, that's good, you're right. So the motion is to amend it, so the motion is amended. At this point, now that it's amended, where it'll say this article, instead of this appropriation, and it will have as advisory, I'll now re-ask the question. I'll make a motion.
Oh, wait, you need a second.
I'm going to make the motion to accept it as...
Amended.
To put it forward as amended. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so now the question is whether or not we put this forward to the voters as amended.
But are we going to,
So this will change
Okay.
the vote.
yeah, but is it going to change the vote? Because
The last vote was just to amend the language.
so is the motion that
You've amended the article.
we've amended it, so is the motion to recommend it?
Yes. That's
Okay,
the motion.
all right, I'm sorry, I got you. Okay.
Seconded by Stan. Any discussion on that, which is we're basically making a vote to whether or not we're recommending or not to go to the taxpayer?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, all in favor?
No, that was,
No,
he
I
has
have
discussion.
Oh, go ahead then.
Yeah, thank you. I think in a year where we're freezing $1 million in our current budget, that this is a bad timing for this article. And I probably should have spoke up more about this in the fall, but I was a little distracted. I think that this board needs to maybe advertise and get the word out that we're looking for ideas of what this building could be used for. Because if Joe Taxpayer stands up at deliberative session and says, well, what are your plans if we do put money into this building? We do not have an answer. I questioned that last week. We don't have an answer. We don't have any idea what we want to do with it. And to be honest, I get the whole, well, maybe we should use it for educational purposes in some realm. But to be honest, in a district that has ample space, and we have ample space, I'm not sure that there's really a good use for that building. That's just my
Well,
input. Thank you.
okay. Any other discussion on the article? So at this point, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of moving it forward to deliberative session on the warrant? Aye.
No.
No. I'll say yes.
So it's 3-2.
I haven't voted yet.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right then. Go ahead. You want a drum roll?
I do. I'm going to abstain.
You gonna abstain?
Yeah.
Motion fails.
So then, if you've not,
All my hard work, up in
if
smoke.
you've not recommended it, does it even go on the warrant?
Well, can I just say, Charlie, and that's part of my hesitancy with really speaking a little bit more to this was because,
I think the answer is no, but go ahead, Joe.
oh, sorry.
So I think it's no, because if my motion
If you don't
was to
recommend it, how do we put it on the
move it
warrant?
forward, and if
Well-
it didn't pass, then we're not asking a question.
Right. And I guess just as a member of this board who just recently really started sharing some of his thoughts, I want to apologize to you as the chair. I really should have done this at an earlier stage, and I just didn't. I kind of stayed quiet on it. And because you did, I know you did, you're the one that kind of formulated some of these ideas of how to gauge whether or not people are interested in doing anything with it. But I just don't, part of me thinks if we can solicit ideas for this building and then go to the voters, I know it's a year from now, but what's another year? This thing's been sitting for a long time. We might have a better chance. I mean, I don't even know if are we allowed to, if someone walked up to us tomorrow and says, I'll give you 10 grand for that building, are we even allowed to sell it?
Yep.
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
You're gonna have to,
No special meeting, nothing?
you're gonna need a special meeting.
Yeah, a public hearing.
No, special meeting.
Don't we have that article that allows us to accept special revenue and manage the assets during the business year?
I don't believe it goes to selling real estate, and I will double check that, but I believe you are required to have a special meeting
I
for
think it
that.
does, and the reason I think it does is the town does it all the time with assets that are seized by taxation.
Town and school are in different spots. We
Right.
can't seize assets.
All right.
Well, I don't even think it's seized assets. It's basically assets of the town, typically. And I'm not sure on the answer.
Yeah.
I believe that the answer is yes, but I'm not that sure. I'm only 60% sure.
We've done it before at Oyster River.
I'm not,
3 or 4 years ago, we did it at Oyster, we sold some property, and I can't remember for the life of me, but I know I'll talk to
Yeah.
Jim tomorrow.
I mean, and that may be
And I'll
fine,
set
Joe.
the RSA.
I mean, I think that we have contracted with a subcontractor to get an estimate. I think when we get that estimate, I think we should still pursue that, because that'll give us a number that says this is what it's gonna take, and I think that we can still pursue grant funding and, figuring out as you say, what we could and should do with it. But without knowing the rehabilitation cost, I think talking about stuff is somewhat putting the cart before the horse, because, if you want to turn it into something, but,
When do we anticipate that, that he's gonna take a look at that? I know we voted to approve that.
We were hoping today, that didn't happen.
yeah, but I think within a few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going on the warrant, it's not as big a hurry, so.
Right, so after he does that, we'll have some solid figures, and then maybe we can just start maybe soliciting and seeing what kind of interest is out there, if it's something that we don't wanna take on ourselves.
Yep.
So do we want to make a motion to clarify and withdraw Article 12?
It just
I
died.
think it just died.
Okay,
Just died.
just so that it's clear from the...
Yeah.
It just died when I'm putting it forward, because that was my motion, to
I'm
put it
fine.
forward.
Okay.
As amended, we amended the language. So getting back to Ruth Ellen's question, I'm going to ask the board, because Josh wasn't able to make the last meeting, does the board want to reconsider voting on the other articles now that we have the full board in attendance, or they're comfortable with moving forward with the vote at 4-0? Any discussion? I'll ask Josh the question. Josh, is this something you want to reconsider to get your opinion regarding these warrant articles?
I don't think it will materially change the recommendations.
Okay, so it's not something you feel that you would like to pursue?
I don't think it's necessary.
Because except for 12, they were all unanimous, weren't they?
They were,
Yes.
Unanimous, and there was 4 of us present.
correct.
I mean, but Josh may have an opinion that he wants to express in public regarding one of these, and to vote in the negative. So that's why I just wanted to ask him the question, because he could have some comments, say it's regarding a school bus or lighting upgrades, that he wants to make part of the public record, so.
I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm in concurrence with the votes.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
Tim?
just moving on to Article 11. Again, it's an advisory article in nature if we want to do the multi-year contract to update the lighting. And we're calling it an appropriation. Do we move to amend that to school board recommends this article and change the word appropriation article? Because we're spending money out of an existing line versus reappropriating that money.
I don't know the answer to that, because there is money involved. I
There's
think
money-
DRA's got an opinion. and I don't
There's
know what that
money
is.
involved that's an offset, and I think we have to do,
Well, if you're spending money, even if you're getting it back later, if you're spending money, that's by definition, that's an
Right.
appropriation.
so.
But we've already appropriated the money in the Fund 10 budget. And again, it's I guess it's a technical, it doesn't defeat the purpose. I guess the purpose of the article is the purpose of the article, but if we were going to change it in 12,
Well, in 12, you
12, we
weren't going to
weren't-
be expending anything to rehab it this year.
Or doing anything until there's another
But the
vote.
lighting upgrades would potentially have expenditures next year.
expenditures out of an existing line item that already exists. So we've raised and appropriated the money over here in Fund 10.
But it probably will need to exist in order for it to be an ongoing offset. There may need to be a separate fund for that to be coming in
Has
and
this
out
language
of.
gone by DRA?
They have looked at first draft, but I don't have final.
Yeah, I'm okay with
Yeah.
proposing it to them to say, can this be article, or does it
Either
need to
that,
be
either
appropriate?
that or leave it the way it is, and they're going to amend it if it needs to be amended.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's not part of the warrant, the language for the school board and budget committee is not part of the warrant article, so I believe that can be amended later on if need be.
That is correct.
So
That is
I'll leave it alone.
Okay, any other discussion on the warrants? Have we tackled everything we needed to?
Obviously, once the candidates have filed, those will be filled in for Article 1. And Article 3 will amend depending upon where we go on Wednesday night.
So deliberative is on January 30th?
Yes. I did speak with the moderator. At this point, he is still looking at the 9 o'clock, still wants to do the in-person as you had discussed. He thought that was reasonable. The only other thing that we may need to
And we're
do,
providing the additional rooms for overflow and people that don't want to wear masks.
we would be looking at doing that,
And
yes.
you had that discussion with them as far as the
We talked
format.
about it in general
Okay.
terms.
And then we need to have a little delay, giving
Right.
people time to physically move from one area to another.
We'll get that
Or
part-
notify somebody.
Right.
Because we may have to have a runner.
We will likely need runners, and what we might want to do is see if we can tap some of the National Honor Society students to do
Right,
some of that
because if we
piece.
have somebody that has,
Get
needs
a
additional
wireless
time.
mic, or get a wireless mic to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
additional time or assistance, then we need to provide for that.
Just ask a question, and Brian, Mr.
about a
Shag-
5-second
Mr. Shagman
delay.
may pipe in, but in our extra rooms, we can have the YouTube, well, it's not going to be a live YouTube. So we can have the GoToMeeting in the extra rooms for our visual presentation.
And we can live stream the YouTube as well, so we could have
Which-
TV sets
Which
on channel 26.
still is a delay,
Yep, there will be.
but we also just, correct me if I'm wrong, updated the intercom system in this building. Can we use the intercom system to broadcast our audio from the
From the table.
gymnasium so that if I'm sitting in the library, I'm going to hear it? I mean, can we take
It requires access to the phone, which is going to be, we'd have to pass the phone down the table to do that, which would be awkward at best.
And
Okay.
I think the problem is,
Interesting idea, though.
I think the problem you're gonna get is gonna be fighting the delay. So if you're in a room and you hear it on the intercom, that's gonna be at a different timing than the picture, and it may be very confusing to those
Okay.
people that are not live.
All right, we'll just have to work
Worse
with
than
them.
watching subtitles, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing that we may want to look at is, depending upon when your next meeting is, whether you want to revote whatever total the Budget Committee recommends for Article 3.
And that'll come on Wednesday night,
Right.
and whether we approve or disapprove, sounds like the discussion, and I'll divert to the chair, that we're going to meet the 18th and the 25th.
Well, and what I will say there is that you do have to approve it, but
Right.
it doesn't have to be unanimous.
Right.
You cannot not approve your own operating budget.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it does just what Article 12 does and it goes poof. So
My other comment, too, is I said the 18th, but the 18th is actually a school holiday.
it is. So it would need to be potentially the 19th. We talked about the 21st being out, so I know
Yes.
we hadn't set another date for
No, the
next week yet.
21st was possible, the 20th was out. The 19th is out for me.
I thought the 21st was out for
I don't think
Joel,
Mr. Shagman could be
Oh,
here on the 21st.
so.
That may be the case. The 19th, I have to be at a public hearing for the schooling board as an applicant. I mean, at the
Planning
planning
board.
board, as an applicant, so.
So, anyway, I jumped ahead a little bit on Article 3, but so are we good with what we have for the current warrant? I would like to be able to give it to the Budget Committee tomorrow as opposed
Well, we made
to
any
just...
changes. Is there any other changes the board wants to consider on the warrant article? Going once, going twice. Guess we're all set.
Okay,
It's now 11.
So tomorrow, when
a little
you
bit shorter meeting, right?
correspond with the Budget Committee, can we send them that worksheet that was presented to us
Oh,
tonight with the
absolutely. Yep.
freezes so that they have that?
Yep. That was on the list to go.
So I think as far as the next meeting, I think we're going to need to have a meeting on the 18th. I've got
The
some-
18th is a holiday.
Sorry. Oh, 18th, okay. So if the 21st is out for Joel, the 20th is out for Brian, the 19th is out for me, the 18th is out for staff because they get the day off.
Do we need Brian here on the 20th?
Yeah, I guess that's the next
I mean,
question.
Charlie, if I'm the only member, then go, don't hold up.
Well, I mean, I guess the next question is, if we do the Wednesday, and if Brian's not in attendance, Ruth could potentially just pinch hit if need be.
I mean, and I guess my question is, what is it that we're looking to have, because that would be our,
Right. I mean,
Third meeting.
I think that would be an update, is anything that needs to be updated regarding that item, and any additional things that, I had a couple things on my list for new business that I wanted to push to the next meeting, and not drag this tonight out because we have some non-public discussion.
I think
a few things.
I think the importance of Wednesday night too will be the board's discussion based on the results of the public hearing on the 13th. We're gonna have to either redo what we've done or accept what, was adopted jointly.
Yeah, and I think we should have a full board for that. And if we need to make a decision,
but you're not going to have a full board for that week.
The 20th we
The
will.
20th they will, I was
Oh,
gonna be here.
Right.
you're the one who can't be
Yeah.
here, okay.
And,
we'll just make all the cuts and say, Brian, while you were gone, here you go, surprise.
it can be watched at 7:30 from your desk on YouTube. Let me know if you need the address.
We're not meeting till 7:30?
7:30 in the morning,
Ah, okay.
following day.
So, Josh and Stan, are you able to attend next Wednesday at, say, 6:30?
Wednesday's fine.
Should be fine.
Tim, you're okay?
Yeah.
So, so we'll have a meeting on the 20th, and we'll work on Brian's, belated Christmas present. We'll give to him when he gets back on the 21st.
I look forward to it.
I do have one other piece of old business,
Okay,
but that's up, I can.
okay.
I can
So
hold it.
moving along,
Yep.
what's your next old business?
I just wanted to clarify on sports. We
Okay.
do have an updated recommendation from NHIAA that is, NHIAA highly recommends and encourages schools to adopt protocols for the wearing of masks during practice and competition when at all possible and allowed based on the rules of the sport. So obviously, right now, we won't be doing masks for Spirit because they are not allowed for stunting in Spirit and they are not required for Spirit. It says all NHIAA tournaments will require masks for all participants except for gymnastics, skiing, ski jumping, and Spirit. So when our basketball teams go to tournament, they will be required to wear masks per NHIAA. We do have several schools that we are competing against that have in-house rules that do require masks.
Okay,
There
and
was-
that's a good point that you brought up, because you asked me about this today, and I guess the situation is we have some tournaments that we're going to, that one's hosting it or have a requirement.
Well, tournaments or even just games. And
Right.
I wanted to clarify because this had come up as a question, and frankly, in the past, if there's been an adjustment from NHIAA, I've discussed it with the AD and we've gone with it because it hasn't been a board level piece, because we've never had a board vote how we could run an athletic season quite the same we've done this. I wanted to make sure that it was clear that in no way was I looking to undermine a board vote. We do have
So,
athletes that have been wearing masks. We have clarified to make sure that they understand that the board vote did not require it up until this point. but they also understand that they are playing against sports teams that do require masks in their own facilities. And so,
Yeah.
I just got a question, and if you don't mind, I'll direct us at Mr. Shagnon. When we were going over this process, from the material that either I was told or read, I don't remember what it was, the medical experts were advising the basketball players while they were playing basketball, physically active on the court, that it was unhealthy to do that. So I guess I'll ask Joel what that initial guidance was that we got, because if my memory serves me correct, and it doesn't always do that, I think we had that conversation, and that was one of the biggest concerns of mine is, I don't have a problem with a student wearing a mask, but I do have a problem with a student wearing a mask if it's going to endanger their health in a significant way.
Well, so is Eric on?
Yes, I am, Joel.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I may be wrong, because it was a little while ago, but I thought originally when you presented the proposal that the basketball committee was not recommending masks during play. Am I right or wrong on that?
So when the first proposal came, the basketball committee hadn't officially met yet, but the sports committee, I was doing all the past recommendations, and of the NHI and the sports committee, this basketball committee now has met, and the NHI has met, and that's when they've changed now going forward that they highly recommend. With no obviously mandation, leave it up to the local schools, but they have changed their direction on highly recommendation.
Were the committees in the fall recommending wearing masks during play or not recommending?
So they did not recommend, they played pretty neutral in the sense of they're going to leave it up. They didn't put any say really if they recommend it or not, because of the lack of studies, I think, and I'm assuming that's why the sports medicine committee never made up a recommendation of wearing masks while playing. They just recommended wearing them when not everywhere else.
Yeah, see, that's one of the issues. You've got so many committees.
yeah.
You got the basketball, each sport has its own committee that factors into this. You got the sports medicine committee, and okay, well, that, I thought that when you first did the proposal that I thought you said the basketball committee, and like I said, I could be wrong, was that there was some potential issues with wearing masks during play.
No, and the basketball committee has met, and our division has done a power vote. Obviously can't dictate anything, but it's highly in favor of everyone wearing masks. It's really taken a turn here in the past, 3-4 weeks here. But
What about the Spirit Committee? Do they have the same recommendation?
so their recommendation is that they continue as, they do cheering, but with no stunting. Obviously can't be mandated. If the stunting is happening, then the mask cannot be worn by the National Federation laws, recommendations that were adopted.
Go ahead, Tim.
So that's what's confusing me, Eric, is we have the medical experts that are saying if you're stunting, you can't wear a mask. Yet we've got basketball players running down that court at a much more physical pace that we're saying they must wear the mask. So how do you judge that medical dangerousness of...
And what is the reason? Is the reason for stunting they're concerned about the mask shifting and covering somebody's eyesight and then
Yes.
being a safety hazard? Or is it, is there a reason behind that?
In digging through, that seems to be
That would be my
the
guess. It
general.
could be.
Right, because they're saying even if they are not stunting, if they are doing any type of even just tumbling, they are required to have a mask firmly taped if the mask is worn so that it can't shift and obscure their vision. So,
but it's okay if it obscures the vision of a basketball player going up for a layup.
Different committee.
Yeah, I mean, I do share some of Tim's safety concerns, and I'm not in favor of making it mandated for our school if a student wants to wear it, because I think at a very high level of physical exertion and output, that it could potentially cause a child the additional restriction may cause them to be, say, potentially faint or some other medical issue at very high outputs. It's one thing if it's a scrimmage, but when it's a game, you know, some of the kids are really going as hard as they can go. And that would be my concern, that it would be an additional, something additional they're not used to, and it could lead to a situation, whether it's fainting or something else, when somebody's going at a very high output. But that's just my personal, but if we're going somewhere and it's a requirement, we need to follow their house rules.
And I think that's part of the reason why the shift in recommending use in practice to get kids more accustomed to, so that they kind of build up some of that tolerance and endurance with it as well. But again, it's, you know, if they make the tournament, they're going to be required to wear masks to go.
So I think at that point, I'd like to readdress it, unless Joel's got something else that he wants to pipe in on, but I agree with Charlie's discussion. I think we leave it the way it is. If we go to a community that requires a mask, I think our students should be aware that they're going to be required to wear a mask, and they can make the decision if they want to go or not.
I agree with that.
Can I ask for one clarification?
Go ahead, Eric.
Say there's a contingency for a team in order for them to compete against us at our place that we wear masks. What would be the ruling for that?
Has that happened?
It potentially could be down the
Okay.
road. I have had discussions with a few teams that we have scheduled.
How quick do we need an answer, Eric?
We're set for this week.
I would, to me, I mean, right off the top of my head, we have a policy that we don't, it's not a requirement. To me, I think it may be a team decision, you know? If the team says, okay, this is what they want us to do, are we willing to do it or not? Because ours is voluntary. You may find the majority of the team, your membership says, yeah, I'm not a problem with that. And it's off the cuff, I mean, that's my opinion. But you could have the team say, no, we don't want to do that. We're not required.
I totally agree with Charlie. What the team needs to realize is there are some schools, and I know Newmarket has been one of them, that's taken a strong stance about playing against teams with masks. Now, I don't know if they are still standing that strong this winter or not, but what the team needs to realize is you may just not have a game. You know,
Yeah, I guess I'm just asking if we are allowed that flexibility to make that decision at ourselves, and the kids and the coaches agree to the terms that we will have to wear a mask at our home to play them, and I'm okay to do that, then I can go forward with that and be okay with that.
We just want to make sure that it's not interpreted as ignoring board policy.
Right. Tim, your thoughts?
My concern is, and the reason I asked, and I know there's a game, I think, tomorrow night, but the reason I asked was, do we have the resources within the district for a medical doctor? I know we have a concussion specialist, but can we ask a doctor, is it medically advisable for our basketball players to be wearing masks full bloat down the court? If we have a doctor saying, I don't have a problem with it, then I'm not opposed to changing the policy, but with me not knowing whether somebody potentially could have a significant heart attack or breathing issue because we require the mask, That's a lot to put on my shoulders without that expertise of making that determination. And I'm concerned because the initial information that was coming out of NHIA, and it's almost reaffirmed by what Mr. Shagnan's saying, is it's dangerous to do that.
Now, but what about the question before us, which is, if the team coming requires it, if the board says, if the students, the team players agree to it, are you okay with that? That's his question. And to me, I
Now,
think it
you
should
asked,
be up
is it the
to the
students, or are
players.
you looking at having the parents sign off on?
Oh, that's a good point.
Because, it could be the difference, and the teams will need to know this, I'm sure the coaches are aware, could be the difference between a 12 to 14 game schedule and a 6 to 8 game schedule.
Right.
So, and Eric, can I ask one other thing? When we wear masks, say we're on the road and we need to wear masks, are all the student athletes wearing the same type of mask? Is there a specific sports mask that we've purchased or that they've been required to purchase themselves? Or is it just like willy-nilly, whatever you throw on your face?
Yeah, it's kind of more to adopted by the individual school's policy. So, just what we expect is we have a mask policy. It needs to meet the mandations of the school policy.
But we haven't specified any specifics on a mask. So what do we anticipate that our kids will be wearing? Well, for example, our junior high team was on the road tonight against Epping. Do they require masks?
Yes, Epping does.
Okay, so all of our kids wore masks tonight. Were they all a standard mask, or were they just whatever the kids threw on?
I supplied every athlete with a Farmington mask was bought.
Okay, you do have the Farmington. I wasn't sure. I know other schools have been ordering specific masks, those gator masks or whatever they are, that I guess are a little bit better for when you're an athlete, you're in the process of playing.
Yeah, the feedback on those from at least a couple of ADs that those didn't work too well, and the regular mask seemed to be a better fit.
Okay. So what do we have? Regular masks, but they say Farmington or something on them?
Yeah, it has the Tiger logo on it.
Okay. Thanks.
Josh or Stan, discussion on Eric's looking for clarification on if a team that's coming here requires us to wear a mask, how should we handle it? Or how should we have them handle it?
I'm fine, I have no opinion. I think we should wear them,
But should we make a requirement or make it voluntary regarding our students here playing a team that is saying the only way we're coming there is that everyone wears masks? And my suggestion was make it, if the team is in agreement that they will wear masks, then the game could continue. But if they say, no, we don't want to, then the game wouldn't proceed. We could try to mandate that but that would be changing our policy from making it to make it a requirement, which it's currently not.
I'm in a complete agreement with you, Charlie. It's sort of like a coach's gentleman's agreement.
well, that's what I think too, so I'm with that. We shouldn't mandate it, but that they should be wearing masks, and if they don't want to, then I guess they'll have to forfeit the game. The other team won't play.
Josh, your thoughts?
I'm on the same page.
So I'll make that motion to clarify that if a team that's coming to Farmington School to play, that it is up to the team to decide if they're going to wear masks or not. And if they don't, then the game will not proceed. If they agree to it, then the game can proceed, and they've volunteered to wear the mask to have that game.
Second.
Any discussion?
My only concern is at what point do we communicate with the parents that that's going to happen? And again, if you have a parent that's concerned about their child wearing a mask at full force going down the court, are we now going to put a mask on that child without the parent's knowledge? So I'm okay with the policy, but I think there needs to be a step further with something going home with the kids on the team that's saying, this is how we're adjusting it. We may have a game where your child's going to wear
And I would
masks.
say even maybe a step further than that, to say it goes home with the kid and comes home, if the student's not 18, it comes
Right.
back with a signature saying,
Yeah.
So
we're okay with
So
this.
Eric, are you able to do that? If that's accepted as a friendly amendment to this motion, are you able to implement that, basically getting a signed consent from the parent when these situations arise?
Or a blanket one.
I mean.
Or a blanket one.
I could do that. I would really caution if they do it, it's just a one-time thing. agree with
Absolutely,
the
yeah.
statement. I mean, they've already signed a lot of forms so far, just another thing.
Yeah.
But I encourage like a one-time thing, saying,
And on that one-time form, I mean, you already know the schools through your communications with fellow ADs that are requiring that in order to play. You could just list out, okay, these are the games where when they come to our house, they're asking us to wear masks. And that way you know ahead of time. You might not be able, if you can't put a team on the floor, then they don't make the trip for nothing.
right, yeah, I can do that.
So I'll accept that friendly amendment to have the parents furnish consent in writing. Joel?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any other old business from any of the members?
I just want to put on the record, because it's not on the agenda, that once we enter non-public session, I'll be making a motion under safety and security to go into a non-public for a critical incident debriefing with the board.
Okay. Anyone else? At this point, I'm going to open it up to public participation. Do we have anybody online that has any questions or concerns?
I don't have any in the chat.
Okay. At this point, then I'd like to thank anyone for participating, and I will make a motion to go under non-public under RSA 91A:3, 2, A, B, and C for nominations and resignations.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to grab a water.